He did not wait for dark because dark belonged to wolves. He waited for rain. Cold, mountain rain that blurred cameras, soaked scent trails, and made even guards curse under their breath. By late afternoon, the sky finally broke. He pulled on the plainest coat I could find, wrapped a scarf low over my face, and slipped out through the garden path just after a delivery truck rolled through the back gate. My heart hit so hard I could feel it in my throat. Every step downhill felt stolen. Good. Let it be stolen. This child was mine before it was anyone else's strategy. Half a mile into the pines, my body turned on me. At first, I thought the sharp pull in my stomach was fear. Then it tightened again. Harder. Stranger. It rushed through me so suddenly I had to grab a wet tree trunk to stay upright. My breath broke. The rain smelled too strong. The earth hummed under my boots. It felt like something invisible had hooked into my ribs and yanked. No, I whispered, pressing one hand to my stomach. Not now. But my body was no longer listening to pride or logic. Another wave hit, hotter this time, and my knees gave out in the mud. He had escaped the estate. He had not escaped whatever this thing was between me, the baby, and the Alpha I was trying to run from. Dita spat gravel behind me, followed by a door slamming hard enough to cut through the storm. He tried to stand. Fall. Then boots hit the soaked ground, fast and furious, and Cole was suddenly there, rain darkening his coat, his eyes locked on me with something far too close to fear. Evelyn. I dropped to one knee in the mud like the whole world had narrowed to one point. Me. He shoved weakly at his arm when he reached for me. Do not touch me. Something rough moved in his jaw. You collapsed. I was leaving. I noticed. It lifted me anyway, one arm under my knees, the other braced around my back, like I weighed nothing and mattered too much. The worst part was how safe it felt. In the back seat of the SUV, the storm hammered the roof while the heat hit me in violent waves. He was half shivering, half burning, too exhausted to hold every wall up. Cole kept one hand near my wrist like he was tracking a pulse he did not trust. What is happening to me? He asked. My voice came out thin. Bro. His answer was too quiet. The bond is reacting through the pregnancy. He turned my face toward him, dizzy and angry and suddenly more scared than I had been all day. Then why does it feel like it is tearing me apart? His hand tightened once around mine before he seemed to realize he was doing it. For 1 second, his mask slipped. Because I should have told you sooner. He waited. Rain hammered the windows. His throat moved. It looked at me like he was standing on the edge of something dangerous. Then the SUV rolled through the estate gates, and his face shut cold again. Whatever truth had risen between us died before it reached his mouth. 3 nights after I collapsed in the rain, Cole put me in a silver dress and called it necessary. That was how I knew whatever almost happened in that SUV had meant nothing in daylight. Ahmed zipped me into silk I would never have chosen, pinned my hair back, and stepped away while I stared at my reflection like I was looking at a stranger being prepared for sacrifice. When Cole appeared in the doorway, black suit, unreadable face, I hated how my pulse still reacted to him. What is this? He asked. His gaze moved over me once, too brief to trust. A formal gathering. Council families. Neighboring pack envoys. My stomach tightened. And I am here why? I held my eyes. Because hiding you tonight would raise more questions. He laughed, low and bitter. So now I am useful in public too. I did not answer that. Of course he did not. The second we entered the ballroom, the whole room shifted. Crystal light. String music. Expensive smiles. Every head seemed to turn without turning. He stayed near the edge, one hand pressed lightly to my stomach, while Cole moved through the room like he belonged to every inch of it. Then Serena crossed the floor in a silver gown that made the whole room feel rigged, but there was something strained in the set of her shoulders that I did not know how to read yet. An elder said something to Cole. Serena offered her hand. And I took it. He stood frozen while they stepped into the center of the ballroom and began to dance under 100 watching eyes. It scraped up my throat. It looked perfect beside her. Powerful. Expected. Chosen. Like the mountain had carved them from the same cold stone, and there had never been room for someone like me at all. Serena found me alone near the terrace doors after the dance. Her smile was soft enough to cut. You see it now, do you not? She asked. Men like Cole do not choose chaos. They choose legacy. He tried to move past her. She stepped just close enough to stop me. Whatever secret you are clinging to, you will never risk the pack for scandal. The words hit because they sounded too much like truth. Before I could answer, two councilmen passed just beyond the open doorway, their voices low but clear enough in the night air. If the air exists, it can be secured quietly. And the girl? Handled. Once the proper union is announced. My whole body went cold. That was the exact moment everything inside me tipped. Serena watched my face and seemed to think she had won something, though for a flicker of a second the triumph in her eyes looked thinner than it should have. He turned and walked away before she could see the panic break through. Not ran. Walked. Straight backed. Controlled. Back inside, everything was screaming. Back in my room, I locked the door, grabbed the prepaid phone Nora had slipped into my coat lining days ago, and stared at one number I had never wanted to use. Lydia Ayes. My mother's estranged sister. The only family I had left. My thumb hovered once. Then pressed call. Because Alpha Cole Ashford was about to let his world take my child and bury me in silence, I needed someone outside his pack before it was too late. He did not expect Lydia Hayes to answer. My mother had spent my whole childhood treating her sister like a name better left buried, something sharp and unfinished that lived on the edge of old arguments and locked doors. So when the line clicked and a woman's voice came through, low and rough with sleep, my throat closed for one terrifying second. Who is this? He gripped the phone harder. My name is Evelyn Hayes. Silence. Then a sharp inhale. Amelia's daughter? Hearing my mother's name in a stranger's mouth hit harder than it should have. Yes. Lydia's voice changed instantly. What now? Alarmed. Why are you calling me from Ashford territory? Issa slid through my ribs. He had not told her where I was. How do you know where I am? Because if you are Amelia's girl and you are scared enough to call me after all these years, then it can only be one reason. Papers rustled on her end. Adores chat. Listen to me carefully, Evelyn. If the Ashford elders know anything about you, you are not safe. The next truth came so fast I nearly forgot to breathe. He moved deeper into the dark corner of the room and lowered my voice. What do you mean, not safe? Lydia did not answer right away. When she did, it came out tight. Controlled. Like she was forcing herself not to say too much too soon. Your mother warned me years ago that if anything ever drew you into pack politics, especially near the Ashfords, I was to get you out immediately. My pulse slammed. Why? Another silence. Then, softer, because Amelia knew things about those elders. Dangerous things. My hand went to my stomach. Was it about my father? No, Lydia said too quickly. It was older than that. Be here. Be here. The word barely landed before I heard footsteps outside my door. Heavy. Mali. So close. Lydia heard my breathing change. Evelyn? What is wrong? He turned toward the hallway, every nerve snapping taut. Someone is outside. Lydia's voice sharpened. Do not trust anyone in that house. Do you hear me? Especially not the line cut dead. 1 minute later, the bedroom door opened without a knock and Cole stepped inside. Dark shirt. Hard face. Controlled anger. I looked from the phone in my hand to my expression and understood enough to go cold. Who did you call? He stood up too fast. That is none of your business. His eyes flashed. Everything connected to this child is my business. He hated that those words still had power over me. Maybe I am tired of being locked up and lied to. A hard line set in his jaw. You reached outside my security perimeter without telling me. Do you have any idea what that risks? He let out a breath that sounded like a laugh and a wound at the same time. What I risked was finally hearing one honest thing. Something moved in his face then. Brief. Dark. Hate or anger. Maybe both. But when he spoke, his voice was pure alpha. Your phone privileges are over. Guards double tonight. No one enters or leaves this house without my approval. The room went still around us. I had not asked who Lydia was. I had not asked what she said. I had already decided the worst. And that was when I understood the next prison Cole built around me would not just be made of locks. It would be made of suspicion. I knew it was a trap the second Cole told me I was leaving the estate for a doctor's appointment. I stood in the front hall like he expected me to argue. I was right. You said no one leaves without your approval, I said. His expression did not shift. This has my approval. 2 guards waited outside. A black SUV idled at the curb. Everything about it felt controlled, calculated, impossible to refuse. He should have said no anyway. Instead, I grabbed my coat and followed him because the baby had become the one argument I could not beat. 20 minutes later, on the road into town, the trap finally showed its teeth. At first it looked normal. Wet pavement. Pine trees. Gray sky pressing low over the mountains. Then the driver swore under his breath. A pickup cut across the lane behind us. An otter slid into view ahead. Todo close. Todo time. Cole's whole body changed in 1 second. Colder. Sharper. His hand shot across the seat in front of me. Down. He hit the floorboard just as the SUV jerked hard to the left. My heart slammed against my ribs. One of the guards cursed into his radio. Dita screamed outside. Then Cole was reaching down, gripping my arm, pulling me upright just enough to see his face. Look at me, he said. Edith. I hate that I did. Are you hurt? He shook my head. What is happening? His jaw locked. Someone knew this route. After the SUV tore through the back streets of town and skidded into the underground garage of a private building I did not recognize, the stakes sharpened again. Cole got me out fast, one hand locked at my back, all command and urgency. We were halfway to the elevator when another voice cut through the concrete silence. Mason Reed. Cole's beta. I moved in close, rain on his shoulders, anger in his eyes. That was not random, he said. They were waiting at the exact turn-off. Cole's gaze went lethal. I know. Mason looked at me once, then lowered his voice. Only 4 people had the route. The words landed like ice water. Cole did not answer right away. He just stared toward the garage entrance like he could already see the circle of names closing in. Then he said, flat and cold, from now on, she stays in my residence. My head snapped toward him. No, he did not even look at me. Yes. When the elevator doors opened into the private top floor of his main house instead of the guest cottage, I understood how far this had shifted. Larger. More secure. Worse. He walked me inside himself, dismissed the guards, then turned to Mason near the door. I want every communication log from this morning. Mason nodded once. You think it is someone in the council? Cole's face went hard enough to cut stone. I think someone close to me is feeding them. Closer to me. Not the pack. Not the territory. Me. Cole looked at me then, finally, and something in his eyes made the room feel smaller. Not suspicion. Not distance. Something more dangerous. Because if the enemy was inside his circle, then moving me closer to him did not make me safer. It just meant whoever wanted my baby now knew exactly where to aim. Morning did not make me feel better about the way Cole had looked at me in the library. That was the first punishment. The second came before noon. He was cutting through the east hallway on my way back from Dr. Bennett's follow-up room when voices stopped me cold behind the half-open study door. Serena was inside. So was a man in a navy suit with a leather portfolio spread across Cole's desk. Legal. He should have kept walking. He did not. If the announcement moves forward, the lawyer said, The transition will be cleaner if maternal complications are avoided. My whole body went still. Serena stood by the window in pale gray, calm as winter. Cole faced the desk, one hand braced against it, jaw tight. I said I want every contingency reviewed, he said. Contingency. Clean transition. Maternal complications. The words hit in pieces, then all at once. He backed away before the floor could give me away, but the damage was done. Whatever softness had lived in that library was dead now. When Serena found me in the glass corridor 15 minutes later, like she had scented the exact second my hope cracked. Her heels clicked once, sharp and deliberate. You heard enough, I assume. He turned to leave. She stepped into my path. Do not bother pretending you matter more than timing. Pressure climbed into my throat. Move. Her smile never reached her eyes. Underneath it, I caught the first hint that certainty and fear might be living side by side. Cole was born for order. For legacy. For control. Men like him do not build futures around accidents. He stared at her, every nerve burning. And women like you mistake strategy for devotion. That landed. Her expression flickered, then hardened. Believe whatever helps you sleep. But when the legal structure is finalized, do not act surprised. Legal structure. The phrase kept echoing long after she walked away. Then that evening when I locked myself in the bathroom, turned on the faucet for cover, and dialed Lydia from the backup number Nora had hidden in my makeup bag weeks ago, she answered on the second ring. Evelyn? He pressed a hand to my stomach and forced my voice steady. I need a way out. Silence. Then Lydia exhaled hard. Tell me what happened. He leaned against the sink, eyes burning. I think Cole is building a future where my child survives and I do not belong in it. Lydia's voice turned sharp, practical, immediate. Then stop waiting for him to choose differently. He can get to the South Service Road by tomorrow night. But once you leave, you do not hesitate. He closed my eyes. I will be there. Then before I could even put the phone away. When I stepped back into the bedroom, Cole was already inside, standing near the fireplace with that terrifying stillness of his. His gaze dropped to the phone in my hand, then lifted to my face. You. Have been avoiding me all day, he said. He shoved the phone into my pocket. Maybe I finally learned. Something dark moved behind his eyes. Learned what? The answer jumped out before I could soften it. That every time this starts to feel real, I find you choosing structure over me. He stared at me like I had struck something he had never meant to expose. But all he said was, you are drawing conclusions from things you do not understand. He let out a bitter laugh. Then maybe stop conducting my future like a legal negotiation. His jaw locked. Evelyn. Use my name. Low. Warning. Toolati. He had already stepped back inside myself. And judging by the way he looked at me, cold and frustrated and completely blind to what I was about to do, Cole still thought this was just another argument. Not the moment he lost the chance to stop me from leaving. Lydia did not come through the front gate. Of course she did not. She came through the service entrance just after dusk with a borrowed catering badge, a raincoat pulled high, and the kind of face that looked tired in a way only old grief can make permanent. He knew she was my mother's sister the second I saw her. Sammy pale eyes. Sammy stubborn mouth. Sammy feeling that life had taught her to expect the worst first. The kitchen staff never looked twice. By the time she slipped into the unused breakfast room where I was waiting, my pulse was so loud I could barely hear the door shut. She took one hard look at me, then at my stomach, and all the sharpness in her face cracked. You look just like Amelia, she whispered. Something in my chest pulled so tight it hurt. Then tell me why my mother spent her whole life acting like this family had to stay buried. When Lydia sat down, she stopped pretending there was a gentle version of the truth. Because your mother was not just some forgotten pack girl, Evelyn. Her voice stayed low, but every word landed like a stone. Amelia Hayes was born Amelia Rowan. Her mother came from one of the old Alpha lines before the Ashfords consolidated power. He stared at her, my mind snagging on the name. Rowan. Old Alpha line. Impossible. That is not possible. Lydia gave me a look that cut straight through denial. It is exactly possible. And if your child is Cole's, then this pregnancy is not just scandal. Eat this succession pressure. Cold slid under my skin. You are saying my baby matters because of blood. I am saying your baby matters to wolves who think blood is power. Before I could breathe through that, she drove the knife in deeper. Lydia leaned closer, voice rougher now. If the elders confirm your maternal line, they will not see you as a woman in trouble. They will see a claim. A symbol. A child they can shape before it can speak. My hand moved to my stomach on instinct. Did my mother know? Lydia's face went haunted. She knew enough to run. Enough to keep your real name out of their records. Enough to tell me that if the Ashford Council ever got interested in you, it meant something had gone very wrong. I felt sick. Not weak. Not breakable. Just sick with the kind of truth that rewrites every room you have ever stood in. Footsteps stopped just outside the breakfast room door. Heavy. Male. Still. Lydia heard it too. Her eyes snapped toward the frosted glass. Then back to me. We are out of time, she said. Do not tell anyone everything. Not even him. Especially not until you know which side of his blood he serves. The handle shifted once. My breath caught. Lydia stood. The door opened a crack, and one of Cole's house guards appeared, face blank but too alert. Miss Hayes, he said. The Alpha is asking who authorized this visitor. My heart dropped straight into my stomach. Because the worst part was not that Lydia had found me. It was that someone in this house had heard enough to know she mattered. Cole did not question Lydia in front of me. That would have been cleaner. Crueletto. Instead, he had her escorted off the property with false politeness and waited until my bedroom door shut behind us before turning to face me. The room went tight around his silence. Who is she? He asked. No anger in his voice. Worse. Control. He crossed my arms over my stomach like that could hold the truth in place. My aunt. His eyes sharpened. Your mother's sister. Not a question. He hated that he was always smartest when I was already cornered. Yes. It took one step closer. And why did she enter my house under a false name? He laughed once. Seen. Bitter. Maybe because your house does not exactly welcome honest conversations. Something rough moved in his jaw. Do not do that. Do what? Turn this into another reason not to tell me the truth. That was when I realized Lydia had been right. He could not tell him everything. Not yet. But I could not keep pretending nothing had changed either. My mother lied about who she was, I said, each word feeling like a stone dragged uphill. Cole went still. Really still. What do you mean? He held his gaze even while my pulse pounded. Lydia says my mother came from an older line. An Alpha line. Rowan. The name landed hard. He saw it. A flique. A crack. Something bold moving behind his eyes. That is not possible, he said, but the certainty was gone. That line was erased before I was born. It asked, I repeated. Funny word. A looked away first. That scared me more than if he had shouted. A crossed to the window and braced one hand against the glass as if the mountain outside might answer him. There were rumors, he said at last. Years ago fights among the elders. Quiet ones. Decisions that never made records. It turned back, face harder now, but not cold. Check in. If what Lydia told you is true, then this explains why the council is moving so aggressively. Pressure climbed into my throat. Because of me. Because of the child. A said it fast, then corrected himself just enough to matter. Because of what your child represents. He let out a sharp breath. There it is. His gaze locked on mine. Listen to me, Evelyn. If the elders confirm a Rowan bloodline tied to my heir, they will not protect you. They will contain you. And they will absolutely try to control that baby. The next truth dropped between us like both a blade and a bridge. For the first time since the lodge, my anger met his and found the same target. Then they are not just your counsel, I said quietly. They are our problem. Something changed in his face. Not softness. Recognition. Yes, he said. One word. Heavy. Final. They are. He should have felt safer. Hearing that. He did not. Because temporary alliances are still temporary. And when Cole stepped close enough for me to feel the heat of him without touch, I understood the next dangerous thing was not the secret between us. It was the possibility that for once, we might be standing on the same side. The first time Cole took me out in public after we stopped pretending the council was the only danger, Serena made sure the whole pack understood exactly what I was. Not a guest. Not a woman. A rumor with a pulse. The event was supposed to look harmless. A Saturday community fundraiser at the lower lodge. Families. Council donors. Pack businesses lined up with polished booths and fake smiles. Cole said it would be safer if I was seen doing something ordinary. Ordinary? He asked, staring at the crowd gathering below the stone terrace. There is nothing ordinary about me standing here pregnant with your child while half your pack wants answers and the other half wants me gone. A hard line set in his jaw. That is exactly why hiding you every second is starting to look suspicious. The moment I stepped onto the terrace, I felt the shift. Conversations lowered. Eyes sharpened. Two young she-wolves near the cider table went quiet, then one of them said just loudly enough, "So that is her." The other gave a soft laugh. I expected someone more impressive if she managed to trap an alpha. It climbed my throat. He kept walking. That was the rule now. Survive first. Break later. But Serena was waiting near the lodge steps in a camel coat and perfect posture, greeting elders like she had already won the title they kept dangling over her head. She turned when she saw me and smiled, though the smile looked practiced rather than easy. Evelyn. Brave of you to come out. He stopped because retreat would have looked weak. You say that like I had a choice. Serena's eyes flicked to my stomach, then back to my face. Choice is a luxury. Fitness is what matters. The words were smooth. Public enough to sound harmless. Sharp enough to cut. 10 minutes later, a council wife asked with false innocence whether I planned to stay long-term in pack territory given the circumstances. Another woman added, "Some girls mistake attention for belonging." He could feel the whole circle tightening. Testing. Waiting to see if I would flinch. My chest burned. My hands went cold. I opened my mouth, but Serena spoke first, softly, like she was helping. We should all be compassionate. Stress can make unstable women say unfortunate things. That did it. Humiliation. Plan. Public. Deliberate. He turned to leave before I gave them the satisfaction of seeing my face break. Then a voice cracked through the terrace like a winter branch under ice. Enough. Cole. The whole crowd stilled. It did not touch me. It did not stand too close. It just moved to my side and faced the circle with that terrifying alpha calm that always came right before people remembered who ruled them. No one here will speak about Miss Hayes again without choosing their words very carefully. Serena's expression barely shifted, but I saw it. Surprise. Then calculation. An elder tried to laugh it off. Cole, surely this is unnecessary. Coles has never left his. It is now law. Silence dropped hard. He should have felt protected. Instead, all I felt was the sting of what he had not said. Not Evelyn. Not the mother of my child. Not someone I choose. Just Miss Hayes. Defended, yes. Claimed, no. And as the circle broke apart under his authority, I realized the cruelest part of this new war was that even when Cole saved me, he still found a way to keep me at arm's length. He did not cry at the lodge. He did not cry when Cole denied me in front of his pack. He did not cry when Serena smiled at me like I was something she could scrape off her shoe. But the second the front door closed behind us after the fundraiser, my body finally betrayed me. He made it halfway across Cole's private sitting room before my breath caught wrong and everything I had been holding in cracked at once. Evelyn. His voice followed me, low and careful now, which only made it worse. He turned on him so fast it hurt. Do not. My eyes burned. My chest ached. Do not act like standing there and saying Miss Hayes fixed anything. The words came out sharper than I planned. Good. Let them cut. What undid me next was that he did not argue back. He stepped closer, not alpha close, not command close. Just enough to make the room feel smaller. I stopped them. You controlled them, I shot back. That is not the same thing. My hands shook. He hated that he could see it. They humiliate me. You shut it down. Then you still leave me outside the line. His jaw tightened, but he stayed. You think I do not know that? He laughed once, broken and bitter. No, I think you know exactly what you are doing every time you protect me without choosing me. The silence landed like a blow. Real. Then his voice dropped. I have been fighting the bond since the night at the lodge. The room went still around me. He stared at him, every nerve snapping awake. What? I held my gaze now. No retreat. No mask. I knew there was something there before I knew about the pregnancy. He knew it when I left. He knew it when I denied you at the estate. My heart slammed once. Hard. Then why? His answer came rougher than I had ever heard it. Because the second I claim you publicly, the council stops circling and starts attacking. What followed lived in the kind of quiet that makes people reckless. He could hear the fire. The wind outside. My own pulse. You should have told me, I whispered. His eyes darkened. Yes. That one word hit harder than any excuse would have. It took another step, close enough now that I could feel the heat of him in the cool room. I thought if I could contain this long enough, I could secure you first. Pressure climbed into my throat. Instead, you made me feel like a mistake. Pain moved across his face so fast I almost doubted I saw it. You were never a mistake. The words landed low. Deep. Dull late and still somehow exactly where they hurt most. My breath caught. His hand lifted like he meant to touch my face, then stopped inches short, restraint shaking through him. For one reckless second, I wanted to close that distance myself. 3 hard knocks shattered the moment. Mason's voice came through, clipped and urgent. Cole. Council summons. Now. The heat vanished from the room like someone had cut a wire. Cole's hand dropped. His face changed. Not cold this time. Worse. Unfinished. He looked at me like he hated leaving and knew he had no choice. We are not done with this, he said. Then he was gone. And I stood there in the silence he left behind, my heart cracked open by the first real truth he had ever given me, terrified of how easily the next lie could still destroy it. Cole had barely given me one honest night before Serena showed the entire pack what a well-placed lie could do to the truth. He walked into the council chamber beside Mason, not beside Cole, and knew immediately something had shifted. Though many eyes. Though much satisfaction hidden under formal silence. Serena stood near Elder Warren with a thin stack of papers in her hand and the kind of calm that only comes from knowing the trap is already closed. Cole was at the far end of the room, jaw tight, speaking in low-clipped sentences to 2 council members who looked like they had come prepared to enjoy this. Then Serena stepped forward and offered the papers to the council clerk. I believe transparency is necessary, she said smoothly. Especially when ambition begins to threaten the stability of the pack. My stomach turned cold. Warren nodded for the clerk to read. The words came out clean. Beasties. Anonymous reports from estate staff. Claims that I had asked about Luna succession law. Notice that I had inquired whether an heir born outside a formal union could still alter inheritance. Even a statement implying I had tried to use my pregnancy to force private access to Cole's residence. Every sentence sounded carefully shaped to turn fear into motive. He stared at Serena in disbelief. That is not true. My voice cracked across the room anyway. Toolati. Tall human. Exactly what she wanted. One councilwoman lifted a brow. Then you deny seeking status through this child. It flooded my face. I sought safety. Warren folded his hands. Convenient distinction. When my eyes found Cole's across the room, the floor seemed to tilt. He expected something. Anything. One word. One interruption. One sharp order that would cut through the poison. It gave me nothing. Not because he believed it. He could see in his face that he did not. That was what made it worse. It stayed. Silent, calculating, contained, trying to keep the larger secret buried while they carved pieces out of me in public. Serena saw it too. Her mouth almost curved. If emotions are clouding judgment, she said softly, perhaps distance is best until the Alpha makes a more responsible decision. He could not feel my hands anymore. Say something, I whispered, not even sure whether I meant it for Cole or for myself. It did not move. What ended me was not shouting or judgment, but what came next. Not with shouting. Not with a sentence. With silence. Heavy. Strategic. Unforgivable. He turned before anyone could watch the exact moment my trust snapped. He walked out of the chamber with my back straight and my heart in pieces, and by the time the doors shut behind me, I knew one thing with terrifying clarity. Whatever Cole was trying to protect with his silence, he had just lost the one thing I had finally started to give him. Me. He left before sunset because if I had waited until dark, someone would have stopped me. Maybe Cole. Maybe one of his guards. Maybe the last weak part of me that still wanted him to explain why silence had mattered more than I did. Lydia was already waiting at the South Service Road in an old blue SUV that smelled like rain, gas, and urgency. The second I climbed in, she looked at my face once and knew. He did not defend you. It was not a question. He stared out at the pines sliding past my window. No, Lydia gripped the wheel harder. Then you stop bleeding for men who think strategy is love. The words should have hurt. Instead, they felt clean. Final. Then 10 miles down the mountain when the storm rolled in fast and ugly, swallowing the road in gray sheets. Lydia leaned forward over the wheel. We stay on the county road, then cut west. He nodded, one hand braced over my stomach as the baby shifted low and uneasy. Then headlights flared in the mirror. Too close. Too steady. Lydia's mouth tightened. That car has been behind us since the turnoff. My pulse spiked. Another set of lights appeared ahead through the rain. My breath caught. Lydia. I see them. She swerved onto the shoulder, tires sliding once before gripping again. The car. Binda surged forward. Not passing. Herding. They found us too fast, Lydia said, voice gone flat with fear. Someone knew. Then in the next violent second, Lydia jerked the wheel to avoid the truck ahead and the SUV skidded sideways across wet gravel. My shoulder slammed into the door. The world tilted. Metal scream. Then everything stopped wrong. Crooked. Braceless. Rain hammered the windshield. For one terrible second, I could not hear anything except my own heartbeat and Lydia trying to breathe through pain. Lydia. My voice cracked. She turned toward me slowly, one hand pressed to her ribs, face pale. Listen to me. Her eyes locked on mine with terrifying force. This was not random. Headlights cut through the rain outside. Doors slammed. Men's voices. So many. Lydia grabbed my wrist. Someone on the council arranged this. Amelia was right. They are finishing old business through you. Another engine roared up through the storm, farther, faster, and horribly familiar. Black SUV. Ashford crest. Cole. He saw him through the rain before I heard his door slam. It was at my side a second later, wrenching open the passenger door, soaked through, as wild in a way I had never seen before. Evelyn. His hands hovered for one fraction of a second, checking me without touching the places that hurt. Are you injured? He should have shoved him away. He should have told him this was his fault too. Instead, All I could do was shake my head and point at Lydia. Cole moved instantly, calling for Mason, ordering the road secured, the whole storm bending around the force of his voice. Lydia caught his sleeve before he could pull back. "It is the council," she said, each word scraped raw. "Not all of them. But someone close. Very close. Cole froze. Trolley froze." Rain ran down his face. His eyes lifted from Lydia to me, then to the tree line beyond the road, like he could already feel the betrayal moving inside his own pack. And in that moment, with the storm closing in and the truth finally said out loud, I knew this was no longer just a fight for my child. It was a war inside Cole Ashford's house, and someone had just forced it into the open. When I woke up, I was not in Cole's house. That was the first thing I noticed. No black marble. No mountain-sized silence. Just rough pine walls, a narrow bed, and sunlight pushing through cream curtains in thin stripes like morning had been careful not to wake me too hard. The second thing I noticed was the guard outside the bedroom door. Not passing. Standing. Waiting. Safe house, then. Hidden, but still watched. My hand moved to my stomach before I could stop it. The baby shifted once, slow and steady, and I let out a breath I had been holding since the crash. "You are stubborn," I whispered. "That makes two of us." The door opened a minute later and Dr. Bennett stepped in with a tray and her usual no-nonsense calm. No internal bleeding. No signs of distress. "But you need rest." He sat up too fast. "Lydia?" Dr. Bennett's expression tightened. Bruised. Exhausted. Alive. Relief hit so hard it almost hurt. Then the sharper question followed. "Where is Cole?" "Downstairs." The atmosphere had changed. I found him in the kitchen with Mason, both of them bent over maps, phone logs, and a legal pad filled with names. Cole looked like he had not slept at all. His shirt was wrinkled. His jaw was shadowed. His eyes were worse. Harder. Colder. Donny pretending caution could save anyone. Mason was the first to notice me. "Spraten. You should be in bed. And you should stop saying that like it works on me." My voice came out rougher than I meant, but neither of them smiled. Cole turned then, and the room changed. Not with heat. With decision. "I pulled half the estate staff off rotation," he said. "Communication lines are restricted. No council member knows this location." He crossed my arms. "That sounds less like safety and more like panic." Something dangerous flickered in his eyes. "Good. Then maybe I am finally reacting at the correct speed." Mason glanced between us, then spoke carefully. "Lydia Namid Warren Vale." The room tightened around us. "Serena's uncle. Elder. Our broker." Cole's face did not move, but I felt the shift in him like a door slamming inside stone. "He has been at the center of every pressure point," Mason said. "Council scheduling. Security routes. Donor calls. Old records access." Cole looked at the papers, then at me. "This is older than the pregnancy." An hour later, Lydia sat wrapped in a blanket by the fire, pale but upright, and told the rest of it without flinching. "Warren was there when Amelia was pushed out," she said. "Not alone. Bat Central. I hated any bloodline he could not control." Pressure climbed into my throat. Cole stood by the window, motionless, taking every word like it was being carved into him. "And now?" he asked. Lydia's eyes lifted to him, tired and sharp all at once. "Now he sees a Rowan heir tied to an Ashford Alpha. To men like Warren, that is not a child. That is a throne problem." The silence landed like a blow. Then Cole turned from the window and looked straight at Mason. Not like a man cornered. Like a man who had just run out of patience. "No more caution," he said. "No more delay. You want everything Warren has touched in the last 6 months." His gaze shifted to me then, and something in it was new. Not distance. Not strategy. War. "They forced this into the open," he said quietly. "Now I finish it. And for the first time since this started, I believed him enough to be afraid of what he might become to keep that promise. Lydia waited until night to tell me the part that hurt worst. Maybe because some truths sound crueler in daylight. The safe house had gone quiet. Mason was outside on the porch with a phone pressed to his ear. Dr. Bennett had finally fallen asleep in the armchair by the fire. Cole was somewhere upstairs, turning war into lists. And Lydia sat across from me at the kitchen table with both hands wrapped around untouched tea like she needed the heat just to hold the memory still. Your mother was not pushed out because she was weak, she said. She was pushed out because she refused. Ifronid. Refused what? Lydia's eyes lifted to mine. A political mating arrangement. One designed by the same elders now circling you. The next revelation hit so hard I forgot to breathe. They tried to trade her. My voice came out flat. Empty. Lydia gave one bitter nod. Amelia was young, tied to the Rowan line, and useful to men who confuse legacy with ownership. Warren Vale was one of the loudest voices behind it. When your mother refused, they started choking off every safe option she had. Repietascin. Klausin. Elaiensis. Anything that could make her bend. My chest tightened until it hurt. All my life, I had carried this quiet shame around my mother's past, the feeling that maybe she had broken something and I had inherited the damage. Lydia looked at me like she knew exactly where my mind had gone. She did not fail, Evelyn. She fought. She ran because staying would have destroyed you before you were even born. What followed came fast and ugly. He stood so suddenly the chair scraped hard against the floor. Then why did she never tell me? My ears burned before I could stop them. Why did she let me grow up thinking we were just left behind? Lydia's face softened in a way that somehow made it worse. Because she wanted you free of their names. Free of their hunger. She thought if you stayed small, ordinary, forgettable, they would never look at you twice. A broken laugh escaped me. That worked well. The room blurred. He turned away, one hand over my mouth, furious that grief could still surprise me this late. Furious that every piece of my life seemed to have been shaped by men I never even knew were choosing it. The next voice came from the doorway behind me. She was trying to protect your future. Cole's voice. Low. Quiet. He spun around. He had been standing there long enough to hear more than I wanted him to. He did not move closer. He did not interrupt the pain with strategy. He just looked at me with something I could not bear to name. What they did to Amelia was not weakness, he said. It was theft. The word landed deep. Plan. And for the first time in my life, my mother's story stopped sounding like disgrace and started sounding like war. The apology came so quietly I almost missed it. Cole found me alone on the back porch just before sunrise, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the mountain mist like maybe if I looked long enough, I could see the shape of my life before all of this. He stopped a few feet away and did not try to close the distance with force. I was wrong, he said. No title. No command. No defense. Just that. He turned slowly, waiting for the strategy hidden inside the sentence. About which part? A hard line set in his jaw. About thinking silence would protect you. About deciding for you. About every time I made you carry the cost of my timing. What shook me was that he did not stop there. He stepped closer, not enough to corner me, only enough to make sure I could not pretend I had imagined the regret in his face. I kept choosing control over truth, he said. And every time I did, I hurt you. My throat tightened against my own will. He folded my arms over my stomach and held his gaze anyway. You did. The words landed between us with no room left to hide. He nodded once like he deserved worse. I know. That hurt more than excuses would have. Then the conversation stopped being about the wound and started being about what came after it. Cole leaned one hand against the porch railing and looked out at the waking tree line before speaking again. If Warren stays in power, our child grows up in a pack that rewards men like him. It turned back to me, eyes sharper now. If we bring this down, it has to be together. But I will not make another move for you. Let that sit. Testidit. You mean no more orders? No more hidden plans? No more deciding what I can survive without asking me? Yes. One word. Steady. Heavy. Real. He exhaled slowly and looked down at my hand resting over the baby, then back at the man who had broken my trust and was finally standing in front of me without armor. I am not doing this as your secret, I said. His eyes locked on mine. Then do it as my equal. Mason's boots hit the porch steps, cutting straight through the fragile quiet. He stopped just inside the doorway, rain on his jacket, a file clenched in one hand. We found the payment trail, he said. Rogue transfers routed through a shell account tied to Warren's office. Cole's whole face hardened into purpose. He looked from Mason to the file to the man beside me, and for the first time since the lodge, standing next to Cole did not feel like surrender. It felt like choosing where to aim. By the time noon settled over the safe house, the kitchen table looked less like a place to eat and more like the center of a trial. Mason had spread bank statements, burner phone logs, land records, and 3 separate payment trails across the wood in tight, ruthless rows. He stood beside him with one hand on the chair back, reading the same name twice because my brain refused to accept how simple evil could look in black ink. Warren Valley. A shell company in Denver. Transfers routed through 2 fake consulting firms. Thin cash withdrawals that lined up almost perfectly with every so-called rogue incident that had pushed me deeper into hiding. Mason tapped one line with his finger. This one hit 48 hours before the town route was leaked. My stomach turned cold. Cole stood across from us, silent and deadly still. And this? He asked. Mason slid over another page. Private security contractor on paper. Rogue contact on reality. Cole's voice came out flat enough to make the room tighten. He paid to create fear. Then used the fear to justify control. The second strategy replaced shock, everything hardened into purpose. Cole straightened and looked at Mason like a man selecting the exact shape of a blade. Call the council assembly, he said. Full attendance. Elders, family heads, legal witnesses. Lydia looked up from the fireplace. On what grounds? Cole's eyes shifted to me for one beat, then back to the room. I will tell them I am ready to announce my Luna. The silence that followed hit hard. Mason gave the smallest nod, already understanding the trap. Lydia muttered, that will draw Warren out. I held Cole's gas. And Serena. I did not deny it. Yes. My pulse kicked once, sharp and mean. Public counsel. Public lie. Public bat. I stepped closer then, voice lower. You do not have to stand in that room unless you choose to. That mattered more than he probably knew. He lifted my chin. I am done letting men decide which part of my life gets hidden. Things moved fast after that. Mensaje traffic lit up Mason's secured phone within the hour. Serena had already responded to the summons. Formal acceptance. Immediate attendance. Lydia read over. He shouldered and let out a humorless breath. She thinks she is walking into a coronation. He moved to the mirror near the stairs later that afternoon and stared at my reflection while buttoning a deep green coat over the curve of my stomach. Not because I wanted to look beautiful. Because I was done looking breakable. Cole appeared behind me in the glass, dark suit, unreadable expression. If you change your mind, we leave now. He met his eyes in the mirror. No, my voice stayed steady. If they are going to drag my mother's name and my child into the center of their power, then they can look at me while they do it. Something changed in his face. Smile. Fierce. Respect, maybe. Before we could move, the plan shattered. Mason's phone rang once, sharp and urgent, and the second he answered, all the color left his face. Say that again. Cole churned. What happened? Mason lowered the phone slowly. Scouts at the South Ridge just reported movement. My mouth went dry. What kind of movement? Mason looked straight at Cole. Armed rogues. Headed toward this location. The room froze. Too early. Too direct. Lydia was already on her feet. Cole's whole body locked into something brutal and immediate. They were not supposed to know this place, he said. No one answered, because we all understood the same thing at once. Warren had moved before the trap could close. And if the rogues were already coming here, then the war we meant to stage in a council chamber was about to begin at our front door. The safe house did not explode into chaos. It tightened into it. 1 second we were staring at Mason's phone. The next, the back alarm screamed and every light in the downstairs hall flipped red. Cole moved first. Of course he did. Mason, west exit. Lydia with you. Evelyn stays between you both. His voice cut through the room so clean it made Panic feel stupid. Dr. Bennett was already on her feet, but one of the younger house guards near the mudroom doubled over with a sharp cry, clutching his side where glass from the shattered rear window had sliced through his sleeve. My heart slammed. Everyone was moving. Too fast. Too loud. But I saw Lydia trying to stand, one hand braced on the table, pain dragging at her face, and I knew if I let them treat me like cargo, someone weaker would get left behind. Instead of running, I crossed the room. Get him up, I snapped at the guard nearest the door. Then I caught Lydia's arm before she could fall. You move with me. Cole turned, fury and disbelief flashing across his face. Evelyn. He looked straight at him. I am not leaving people on this floor while you play Alpha. That landed hard. For one dangerous second, I thought he would argue. Instead, his jaw locked and he shifted instantly. Mason, take the injured guard too. The house shook with another impact somewhere near the back porch. Lydia grabbed my wrist, breath tight. They came too fast. I know, I said, even though my own pulse was roaring in my ears. The service hallway became the next battlefield. Mason shoved open the west door and cold mountain air punched into us. Cole stayed behind us, not in front, not beside me, but exactly where the danger would have to come through first. We had almost reached the tree line when headlights swept across the gravel from the lower drive. Another vehicle. Sleek. Silver. My breath caught. Serena stepped out in a dark coat, rain whipping through her hair, 2 of her own security wolves behind her. Mason swore under his breath. Cole went still. Serena raised both hands just enough to show she was not here to posture. Your south route is blown, she called. Take the lower ravine road. Warren's men are closing from the ridge. I stared at her, trying to decide whether betrayal always looked this composed. That answered the question for me. One of the rogue trucks skidded into view past the pines, and the man leaning out the passenger window did not shout for Cole. Did not shout for Mason. It pointed straight at me. Take the woman, he yelled. Forget the rest. The whole world narrowed in one brutal second. Not random. Not general. Me. My baby. Cole's face changed into something cold enough to stop breath. Serena heard it too. So it too. And whatever game had still been half hidden between council politics and pack ambition died right there in the open, because no one could pretend anymore that Warren Vale was protecting the territory when his men had just chosen their target. Serena did not run when Warren's men named me as the target. That was the first crack in the story I had been telling myself about her. We made it to the lower ravine road in a blur of rain, mud, and shouted orders, then stopped at an abandoned ranger station Cole used as a temporary fallback point. Lydia was inside with Dr. Bennett. Mason was outside on the radio. He was still trying to slow my breathing when raised voices snapped through the storm from the far side of the building. Serena. Warren. He moved toward the broken side window before Cole could stop me. Warren stood under the eave with rain sliding off his coat, his face carved into the kind of anger men wear when their plans stop obeying them. Serena faced him head-on, drenched and furious. You told me we were containing instability, she said. You never said you were sending rogues after a pregnant woman. Warren's expression went flat. Do not be naive now. The girl is a liability. The child is leverage. He taught you to understand the difference. Something in Serena's face changed then. Not shock. Recognition. The ugly kind. When she looked through the rain and saw me at the window, the last mask between us fell. For 1 second, all the masks between us dropped. She walked inside without waiting for permission, water dripping from her sleeves onto the old wood floor, and stopped 6 feet from me. I spread the rumors, she said. No softness. No excuse. I pushed the council. I used every social weapon I had because I wanted the Luna seat, and I thought you were a threat to the order I had built my life around. My throat tightened, but I held her stare. She kept going. But I did not order attacks on you. I did not know Warren had gone this far. Cole stepped in then, all steel and warning. Why should I believe you now? Serena reached into her coat and pulled out a small silver flash drive sealed in plastic. Because I took this from my uncle's study before I came tonight. The second Mason plugged the drive into his laptop, the room went cold. Account layers. Private messages. Transfer. Browser assassins. Warren's name. Warren's approvals. Warren's signature path connecting rogue payments, surveillance rats, and old succession records tied to the Rowan line. The room went dead silent except for the rain. Cole looked at the screen once, then at Serena. You knew enough to suspect him before this. Serena lifted her chin, but her voice finally cracked at the edge. I knew he was ruthless. He did not know he was willing to burn the whole pack to keep control of the bloodline narrative. His eyes flicked to me. I thought I was fighting for my future. Turns out I was just helping a man who wanted everyone else's future owned. What settled after that was quieter than the rest, and somehow worse. No dramatic apology. No easy forgiveness. Just the truth settling where it hurt. He looked at Serena and saw it clearly at last. She had wounded me. Publicly. Deliberately. But she was not the monster behind the war. She was the woman who mistook ambition for safety until the man feeding it showed his real face. Cole took the drive from Mason and closed his hand around it like a verdict. Serena let out one hollow breath and stepped back toward the door. I am done being my uncle's weapon, she said. Do whatever you want with me after the council hears this. Then she walked back into the rain with the posture of someone leaving behind the only crown she had ever been taught to want. And as the door shut behind her, I realized the next time we faced the council, Warren Vale would not just be exposed. It would be alone. The council chamber looked different when I walked into it carrying the truth instead of hiding from it. Sammy stone walls. Sammy long table. Sammy men who had spent months deciding what should happen to my body, my child, my life. But this time I did not enter from the margins. He entered beside Cole. Not touching. Not shelter. Just visible. That alone changed the air. Warren Vale sat halfway down the table in a charcoal suit, his expression smooth enough to make anyone who did not know better mistake him for calm. Serena stood 2 seats away, pale and silent, stripped of the certainty that had once made her look untouchable and left with something rawer in its place. Mason carried the evidence case. Lydia walked in behind us like old ghosts had finally learned how to speak. The second Cole took the head of the table and skipped ceremony. The room knew this would not end cleanly. This assembly will hear evidence of council corruption, rogue collusion, and succession interference. His voice struck hard. Plan. Warren leaned back, almost bored. Strong accusations from a young alpha under emotional strain. That was when Mason opened the file. Payment trails. Sale accounts. Surveillance records. Root leaks. Data that matched every attack, every pressure point, every engineered crisis that had pushed me deeper into fear. The room shifted with each page. Serena stepped forward at last, set the flash drive on the table, and said the one thing I never expected to hear from her mouth. My uncle used me. No drama. No tremble. Just fact. Warren's mask cracked for the first time. Be careful, Serena. She met his stare without blinking. I am done confusing loyalty with obedience. Then Lydia was called forward. The chamber went so quiet I could hear my own pulse. She stood straight despite the bruises still fading beneath her collar and looked directly at the elders who had once buried my mother's name. Amelia Rowan was forced out because she would not submit to a political mating arrangement designed to secure bloodline control, she said. Warren Vale was part of that campaign. And Evelyn Hayes is her daughter. The silence after that felt brutal and final. Warren rose too fast. This is sentimental theater. He felt every eye in the room turn toward me. Not the hidden girl. Not the rumor. Me. My hand moved to my stomach before I could stop it. No, I said, my voice sharper than I felt. This is what happens when the women you tried to erase survive long enough to speak. What followed ended one war and started something bigger. Warren tried one last time to spit poison into the room. Even if the bloodline is real, she is still nothing but a complication. Cole stood then. Slow. Terrifyingly calm. A looked at Warren once, then turned to the full chamber and finally did what he should have done. From the start. Evelyn Hayes is not a complication, he said. She is the woman carrying my child. She is under my protection, by my choice, and by bond. The word hit the chamber like thunder. Bond. Not rumor. Not strategy. Truce. My breath caught. Warren actually looked shaken now. Good. Cole's gaze found mine in front of everyone. No hiding. No distance. And I reject any political Luna arrangement built on corruption. The room broke into shock, whispers, anger, disbelief. But none of it touched the one thing that mattered. Because the humiliation that had started this story had just been reversed in the exact place power lived. And as the council erupted around us, I realized the strangest part was not that Cole had finally claimed me in public. It was that now we would have to find out whether public truth could heal what private silence had broken. The silence after the council hearing was louder than the shouting had been. By the time we reached the upper terrace outside the main house, the whole mountain looked scrubbed raw by cold wind and truth. He stood with both hands on the stone railing, trying to breathe through the weight of what had just happened. Public claim. Public bond. Public choice. Everything I had once begged fate not to make me survive in front of people who would enjoy the fall. Cole stepped out behind me and closed the door softly, like for once he understood force had no place here. You do not have to say anything, he said. He let out a quiet laugh that sounded more tired than amused. That would be new for both of us. When he moved to stand beside me instead of in front of me, honesty became harder to avoid. No corners. No comments. Just honesty hanging there, exposed and harder to bear than anger. I meant what I said in there, he told me. Not because of the council. Not because of the child. Because it was already true before I was brave enough to speak it in daylight. Pressure climbed into my throat. He kept my eyes on the dark tree line below. You should have spoken sooner. I know. The answer came instantly. No defense. No strategy. I wanted you long before I knew what this pregnancy meant politically. I kept telling me self-delay would protect you. All it did was teach you not to trust the very thing I was trying to keep alive. His words hit low and hard because he was right. Every soft moment we ever had been followed by pain. Every time I stepped toward him, daylight punished me for it. He turned then and finally looked at him. Really looked. The man from the lodge. The alpha who had wounded me. The man who had walked into a council chamber and put my name where everyone could hear it. You do not get to claim me in public and expect all the damage to vanish, I said. His eyes held mine without flinching. I do not. Wind moved between us, cold and clean. Then what do you expect? It took one slow breath. A chance to prove I can be consistent. A chance to build something with you that is not made of secrecy and fear. In the quiet after that, something fragile and real finally surfaced. No dramatic kiss. No perfect healing. Just my hand moving, almost on instinct, to rest over the place where our child shifted warm and alive beneath my coat. Cole's gaze dropped there, then lifted back to me with something so unguarded it almost undid me. He stepped closer. Not all the way. Just enough. One step, I said softly. That is all I can give you tonight. Relief and ache crossed his face at once. Then I will earn the next one. He should have felt finished. Instead, Standing there with the mountain wind cutting around us and the future finally cracked open, I realized healing was going to be slower than claiming. And somehow, for the first time, that did not feel like defeat. It felt like the beginning. When the first real snow settled over the Ashford grounds, people had mostly stopped looking at me like a scandal they had to survive and started treating me like part of the room when decisions were made. Not all of them. Not the old guard. Not the ones who had built their whole lives around women staying decorative and quiet. But enough. Enough to matter. He sat at the long library table wrapped in a dark green sweater, one hand under the weight of my belly, while Mason reviewed winter supply routes and border staffing changes. When he pointed out that the lower pass always iced first and left human families stranded before the pack lost access, 2 council aides actually wrote it down. Cole did not interrupt. Did not translate my words into something easier for them to accept. He just looked at the map, then at the room, and said, "Adjust the plan." Evelyn is right. What changed me was that he kept doing that. In public. In private. Not grand gestures. Worse. Better. Consistency. I asked what I thought before he moved guards. It told me when Serena formally stepped away from all succession claims. I listened when I said Lydia should oversee access to my mother's recovered records. Even the staff had started changing around us. Doors were opened for me, yes, but not like I was fragile glass. More like I belonged. It should have felt unreal. Instead, it felt dangerously close to peace. The moment peace started feeling real, my body reminded us how little time we had. It was just after dinner. Snow against the windows. Feet low. He stood from the sofa and the room tilted so hard I grabbed the armrest before I could stop myself. A sharp pressure pulled low across my stomach. Not pain exactly. Worse. Brown. Cole was beside me in one breath. Evelyn. His voice went tight in a way I had learned to fear. Dr. Bennett was called. Instructions came fast. Sit down. Breathe. Water. No sudden movement. He hated the look in Everione's eyes. Like joy could still be taken at the door. Dr. Bennett finally exhaled after the exam and said the words that let the room breathe again. Not labor. Not yet. But close enough that no one should pretend you have endless time. After midnight, once the house had gone quiet and everyone else had stopped hovering, the truth settled in deep. He lay awake in the dark, one hand over the restless shift of our child, listening to wind drag across the windows. Cole sat in the chair beside the bed instead of leaving for council papers, patrol reports, or any of the 1,000 things that once would have claimed him first. You should sleep, I whispered. He looked at me over clasped hands, eyes tired and steady and full of too much feeling to hide anymore. I will, he said. After. Judo. He should have argued. He did not. Because the truth was, with the snow falling outside and Cole keeping watch through the longest night we had shared yet, I could feel the future pressing closer than ever. And this time, it was not politics waiting at the door. It was our child.